Hey everyone, I'm Mario from SummerGirlFitness.com, and today we're talking about anxiety and my 8 tips to help with anxiety if that's something you struggle with. So I want to start off by saying that anxiety is very normal, and can be a really challenging and difficult emotion to deal with, but it's something that so many people experience. Some of us more than others and more frequently than others, but it's very normal. This here is an anxiety curve. So on the left axis is anxiety levels from low to high, and then across the bottom, it's performance. The curve shows that in the middle, there's the optimal level of anxiety. So just the right amount of anxiety to make you focus, study for a test. Then if you have too much anxiety, you get over into the stress zone where you start experiencing unwanted emotions or difficulty sleeping, and it impacts your performance in a negative way. Where on the other hand, if you don't have any anxiety at all, a lot of times you'll be inactive, fatigued. So it's demonstrating that anxiety is a good thing, and there's actually an optimal level of anxiety that really helps our performance. But if your anxiety goes a little bit past that and you start experiencing some of those unwanted symptoms, then you can use some techniques and tips to help bring the anxiety back to that optimal level. The great news is that there are some really simple things that you can do to help manage your anxiety if it's something that you're struggling with. So, number one thing is make sure that you're getting enough sleep. So when we start experiencing a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety in our life, a lot of times our health and self-care routine is the first thing that goes out the window because we're so stressed and anxious that we start trying to manage all the pieces of our lives and we forget to actually take care of ourselves. So the first thing is to really look at your self-care and make sure, are you getting enough sleep? Number one. Number two, physical activity. So when we get anxious and we get really tense and stressed, all of that anxiety that builds up inside of us, it needs somewhere to go. And so physical activity is a great way to channel some of that anxiety in a positive way. So you think about the natural anxiety response. So our bodies get anxious and that adrenaline builds up because, way back in the olden days when cavemen had to fight off a grizzly bear, you would see the scary grizzly bear coming, you would feel all this anxiety, this rush of adrenaline, your heart's pounding, but then you would use all of that to fight off the grizzly bear. But, in our daily world, corporate world, what's stressing you out or making you anxious might be your boss or maybe a big assignment you have to do. And you get that same reaction of your heart pumping, you're sweating, you're feeling anxious, you've got all this built up energy, but you're not actually using it because you don't need to use any of that to finish a paper necessarily. So you need a place for all that to go. And so having some physical activity where you can release all of that pent up physical tension can be really powerful. So even if that's just a walk or a run in your neighborhood, maybe it's playing tennis with a friend or going to a kickboxing class, but something that's going to get that heart rate up, it's going to get you moving, get that body going so you can release some of that anxiety. Another great thing is not only channeling those anxious feelings, but also finding some calm and some present space in the moment. So a lot of times when we are anxious, our minds just start racing. So we start thinking about everything we have to do, everything we haven't done and we should have done, what we should have done differently yesterday, and we just start spinning. And so a great way to help with that is just to come back in the present moment and stay centered right in this moment and just stop your mind from spinning forward into the future and back into the past. So some great ways to do that are with yoga. So if you think about being in a yoga class and you're doing like chair pose, right? And it is so challenging. You are just squeezing, you're trying to breathe, you're trying to twist your arms or twist your body, whatever it is, that you can't think about anything else except what you're doing in that moment. And you're so present. It's that idea. So any kind of activity you can do to get yourself out of your head and just focused in on that moment is great. So for some people, it's coloring in a coloring book. If you can just focus in on coloring in the lines and what you're doing, and you're just focused right in that moment. Those are all great things. So you can kind of find what works for you. It might be working in your garden, when you can just be present, or, even playing with your kid, or, petting your dog, whatever it is, where you can just kind of let go of all those thoughts and just be present in that moment. Another great thing is breathing exercises. So I remember back when I was having to take the GRE to get into grad school, I would get so anxious every time I would go in to take the test because I was just so worried and had all of this adrenaline going, and my heart would start beating and I would just get so stressed. And so I would practice these deep breathing exercises. So my favorite one to do is to take a nice big inhale for 4 counts, and then you hold at the top for 2 counts, and then you exhale out for 6. So you exhale out really slow. And you just do this over and over. And I would literally sit in the waiting room, like waiting to go in to take my practice test or take the real test, and I would just do this breathing. And it actually physically makes your heart rate go down. So if you tend to get anxious before a presentation or before, performance, or if you play sports before a game or whatever it is, practice that breathing and you will actually notice your heart rate go down. So that is a great tool to kind of stick in your tool belt and remember for those moments. Maybe it's traffic. Austin traffic is horrible, where you just feel yourself getting so worked up. Use that to help calm yourself. Another thing that can be really helpful is guided meditation. So I've posted about this a lot, actually. I have a blog post on my website with some of my favorite ones, but you can find them on YouTube, and you can literally just pull it up on your phone, plug in your headphones, and close your eyes, and it will take you through a visualization exercise and some breathing exercises, and you just follow along. So if you tend to struggle to kind of do breathing exercises on your own or to meditate on your own, doing one of these guided meditations is perfect, and they have so many different ones you can visualize: being on a beach, or being in the desert, or being in the snow, or being in a cottage by the fire. There's some actually really beautiful ones, but sometimes when I have trouble sleeping, at the end of the day, if my thoughts are still just racing, I'll just put on one of those guided meditations, close my eyes and listen, and it really helps to just calm me down. Another thing that's important is to start to notice what triggers your anxiety. So, maybe you're already aware of some things like flying on an airplane or giving a talk in front of a lot of people, but in some cases you might not really be sure. You can just say, I always tend to feel anxious, after lunch, but I don't know why. Or maybe it's, by the end of the week, I'm always starting to feel really anxious. And so it's a good thing to start noticing patterns, and then just start thinking about what seems to trigger that, because awareness is often half the battle. And as we start to recognize patterns and what triggers you, it'll help you to prepare more to be ready for those moments where you need those tools. You can prepare your breathing. You can feel ready to take on whatever is producing that anxiety. And my last major tip for you is just to remember that we cannot control everything. There are some things in life that we do have control over, like doing some of these things, some of these tips, taking care of our bodies, taking care of our health, planning ahead, practicing for a presentation. There's some things you can do, but then there's always an element that's out of our control. So life can be unpredictable. Some things are unpredictable, and we can't always control everything, and that's okay. So if you're going into a situation and you don't know how it's going to turn out, sometimes all you can do is just the best you can, and then realize that we can't control everything in life. There's no guarantees, and sometimes we have to take risks, and we don't know how it's going to turn out. But it's okay to do that, and it's okay to feel anxious. It's okay to be worried. It's okay to feel those feelings. We know how to deal with them, but we also can accept them, that feeling anxious is normal, and we can learn to manage it even if we can't ultimately control everything around us. So I hope some of these tips were helpful. I definitely just want to say again that, anxiety is something that so many of us struggle with, and I just think that we don't always talk about the things that we struggle with. And so it's really important to have these conversations and just know that, you're not alone out there, that we all can work together to deal with some of these things. And then, of course, if you are struggling with really serious anxiety, you can always go get help, see a counselor or a therapist, or talk to your doctor and get some more help. And that's okay too, to know when you really need some extra help. So if you enjoyed this video, comment below and let me know what you thought. And also, you can give me some requests, some ideas for other things you'd like to talk about, especially some other more like mind-body topics as well, which I'm really passionate about. So again, I'm Marielle from SummerGirlFitness.com, and I'll see you next time.